Hi, everyone.
Hey,
Hi.
how's it going?
Okay, you?
You know,
Yeah.
as the Jews say,
Meh. Yeah.
yeah,
Well,
yeah.
yeah. So I'll just be, I think most people watching this know that something very sad happened, which is that the great podcaster, on-air personality, YouTuber, Michael Brooks died. And we're like actually really, within that tragedy, we're really lucky that that Nando is here because Nando was like a really close friend of Michael's and had and worked with him. And we're gonna have Nando's going to talk about Michael, and also we're going to be talking to Daniel Bessner, another friend and collaborator of Michael's. And we may have some other people sharing. But do you want to just start off by sharing whatever you want to share about this?
Yeah. Mike was my friend. I mean, I met him in 2017. I actually went back and looked at the DMs. I mean, he actually reached out to me on Twitter and DM'd me, and he's like, "Hey, man, the shit that's going on in Spain is crazy. You wanna come on my show and talk about it? I saw you on Dead Pundits, and I really liked what you had to say." And I was like, "Oh man, thanks." Sure, yeah, of course, I'll go on your show. And then I watched a few of his episodes that he had just started the show. Like he maybe had 2 or 3 episodes of his kind of TMBS show, the sort of spin-off that he did from the Majority Report. And I went on, and he kind of kept up the friendship in a way, and I figured like, oh, I'll go on and then I'll just kind of live my life. And he didn't let me do that. And he made sure that we were friends, and we became very good friends. It's kind of like how you and I met. Like you asked me to be on your show, and I was like, yeah, of course. And then we became friends instead of just kind of going off in our separate ways. And Mike just did that, and then we would talk all the time. I think that he was very ambitious and very strategic in his thinking, and he wanted big things for both himself, but for the left. I think he appreciated that, like, he saw me as like a little bit more polished than other people kind of on the left. Like I come from a mainstream media background, kind of thing, and I was working at a big cable network. I mean, it's not a big cable network, but a cable network, and I had like,
by which you means TV. I'm just kidding.
What?
By which you mean means TV.
Yeah, no.
Right?
Yeah, Fusion. And I think that he was very strategic in the way he thought about this kind of thing, because he was like, well, this is something that we need. Like we can't just be like bearded, Birkenstock wearing, disgusting people with like a, you know what I mean? Like we need to be polished because we need to appeal to a mainstream audience. Like we need to go mainstream. Like, and he was always thinking that. And yeah, so we became really close friends, and we would talk all the time. I mean, we would talk basically every day about, whatever was in the news, the discourse, who was annoying, who was not, like who, he would always send me these, like, and because he was like a very well-read dude, and he was very connected to global movements all over the world. And he would always send me, something to read about, something going on in South Africa or something. And so we became really good friends. And then eventually he asked me to join him on his weekly show that he did with Wozni Lambre, Big Woz, on the Black Opinions Matter podcast feed, which is part of the Count the Dings network. And he was like, hey, why don't you come on as a full-time co-host? And I was like, yeah, for sure, of course. And we did that for every week. We would go on and shoot the shit about whatever was going on in the news. We saw it as kind of like a way to do kind of like the entry point for people into politics. It was kind of like, I think the people who are fans of the Count the Dings network, a lot of people are sports fans or hip hop fans and things like that. And he saw that as an opportunity. Like if we kind of just talked about what's going on in the news from kind of a left socialist perspective in a way that was kind of chill and not, super jargony, and just kind of that we could get people who maybe would not be interested in this kind of thing, get their foot in the door, and then maybe then they could listen to or watch his show, which is like very theory based and very kind of, high level stuff for the most part. I mean, he also did like silly stuff and fun stuff all the time, but he might have like, he might have a whole long segment on a miners' strike in fucking Sudan, or also like a whole thing on, Gramsci versus, whatever the fuck, you know what I mean? And so what he was thinking is like, maybe we'll get these people get the foot in the door, and then maybe they can then kind of solidify their political understanding on my show. And I saw that bear out. Like I saw that thing work out exactly as he planned. Ever since he passed, people have been approaching me. He's like, hey man, like I didn't know anything about the left or politics, and until I started listening to you guys on the Woke Bros, and now I'm a committed socialist, and I'm like, shit, that's cool. So yeah, I mean, I'm just still kind of in shock and in a state of absolute grief. I mean, it was just so sudden. Like I was talking to him the day before he died, just, I don't know, we were laughing at some dumb tweet or something, that someone put out, and then the next day he was gone. It was so bizarre. I mean, people are talking about Mike's book. I actually read his book, and I'm happy that I was able to read it before he died and tell him that I read it, so that he knew that I read it. Like I showed him pictures of like pages and passages that I thought were funny and things like that. And, I highly recommend everyone to read it. It's super short, which I guess so there's no excuse not to read it. It's not like this fucking weighty tome. It's like, you can read it in 2 or 3 hours. And it's great because it captures Mike perfectly, and that he was not afraid to challenge head on these ideas that he thought were rancid, and he would do it, and he would do it in a confident and thorough and funny way often. I mean, his book is called Against the Web, which is basically why the people in the intellectual dark web, the Sam Harrises, the Weinstein brothers, the Ben Shapiros of the world are full of shit. And it was just a very straightforward, head-on, they're full of shit for these reasons, not like because they're bad or because they're racist or something. It's like because like they don't make any fucking sense, and because like and he would actually like dismantle all their arguments in a sort of very systematic way. And it was very helpful to me, like I don't spend fucking a single second of my time listening to Sam Harris's podcast. Like, no way. I don't spend a single second of my time listening to the Ben Shapiro podcast. Like, and Mike was like, no, I realize that these people have appeal, that they have a large audience, that young people who are kind of aimless politically might stumble upon them and find their arguments compelling, and I need to present like a beachhead against that, and he did, and it was very effective, and it's just a very, very good thing to read. Sorry, my table's a little weird. So yeah, I mean, it's just I'm devastated. I've never had, and I don't know if you have, Katie. I've never had someone like so close to me just die like that. I mean, my 2 grandfathers died or whatever, but that's kind of like expected. Right. I've never had like a friend or someone like that just go like that. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I haven't had anyone that I'm like that close, as remotely as close to me as Michael was to you. And yeah, it's like, I mean, it brings up so much. I mean, it's hard for me to talk about this without fearing like I'm sounding like a cliche, but death does that. It brings those things out, right? Like cliches, because cliches are cliches for a reason. But no, it's funny, and then this is such a like intensely bizarre time, and everything is so heightened and exaggerated, and it's like with COVID, and it feels like when you're really like tired, it's like everything's heightened in a way that when you're just like overly emotional for some other reason anyway, like if you're really if something terrible happens and you haven't slept enough, and it's like makes it that much harder, you know. So I feel like we're living in this state now, and all of these things are like that much harder, and in some cases it's because of what's happening now, like when there are lots of people who are having health issues, obviously, and there's and this and as Michael's sister made very clear, this was not a suicide, and I'm just mentioning that because something else that we are dealing with in the background is all this despair, right? And people are shut in, and I just feel like all of these things are in the air, and people are thinking about life and death and connection and seeing people and communities and providing homes for people now that we can't be in person. And so, of course, shows like Michael's were already kind of this home for people, or this community for people, and that much more when people are stuck at home. They have that much more that they're trying to get through non-physical interactions. And this wasn't a case of someone who, like, someone else I know died last week, and actually on Sunday I'm going to be having on Christian Parenti talk about him, Rob Eshelman. And some people are dying. His death wasn't COVID related, but there was a lot of stress in his life. And I'm not, Christian will talk about this, but there was a lot of stress in his life, and he was worried about work. And my headphone mic is still on.
Is your headphone plugged into the mic or to the computer?
The computer, but I can.
Yeah, you need to plug it into your mic.
Oh, okay.
Because if not, you keep scratching your headphone mic, and it's No, can't hear you. You're on mute.
Okay, is this better now?
Yeah. Yes.
Yes.
Way better.
Quick. Wait, now I can't hear you.
You can't?
Hold on. Let me. Let's see. Audio is Mike Sampson. Yeah, that's what I want. And then Sampson.
Your output should be the mic is. Yeah.
Now I can hear you. All right.
Okay, great.
All right.
Much better. Wow. This sounds great.
Wow. Okay, great. You see, we already learned so much. Anyway, this was not a death that was brought on by COVID or brought on by isolation or anything like that. It seemed like it really was a fluke, and horrible. And it's like moving in some ways, because it's so moving to see the outpouring of grief and support and appreciation. And I was listening to a bunch of, I think it was Bhaskar talking to Sam Cedar. And one of them said I think it was Sam, who was, of course, like me, this like unrepentant, secular Jewish atheist. I guess I'm agnostic technically, because I have a teeny bit of doubt. I don't know what Sam is. I assume Sam is probably an atheist. But he said something like, he would have loved to have seen how like moved people were by this, and how many people are saying, he helped me so much. He shaped my worldview. I counted on him for so much stuff. And as someone who comes from a long line of people who don't believe in God, I've often been like, wish that I could say, well, he would have wanted this, he would have wanted that. Or really, he's looking down now. And I don't know about Michael's spirituality. I just know he had a spiritual practice.
Yeah.
And it kind of gives me, it's a little weird because it's not my worldview, but it kind of gives me some solace knowing that he like saw the world in that way.
Yeah.
I don't know.
No, yeah. And, if there is any.
No, I'm not trashed. Sorry. I'm going to ignore all comments that aren't serious, by the way.
Yeah. He was very spiritual. I mean, he was very big into, Buddhism and things like that, and he loved, like, one of the things that attracted him to all the sort of left politics in Latin America was its sort of spiritual base and liberation theology.
Right.
He like loved all that stuff. He was big into yoga and meditation, and he thought that it was impossible to build a proper internationalist left without a degree of spirituality attached to it, that sort of personal, conscience building and consciousness building, was a prerequisite for any proper left movement that was humane and based in sort of these humanist values. I mean, and it's, I've been touched to see the outpouring. I mean, the fact that Lula da Silva, Fernando Haddad, Cornel West, his name escapes me now, this South African ANC former Communist Party member, all posted about him. It showed Michael was extremely, like I said, he was very strategic in his thinking. And one of the things that he thought was, like, there are people who have done this before. There are people who have done this before. What we're trying to do, build a left, there are people who've done this before. I need to be as close to them as possible. I need to understand them. I need to understand their trajectories, their tactics, their strategies. I need to respect them. I need to give them their proper place in history. And I need to learn from them. And I think that that's why he was so obsessed with Lula. I mean, Lula is probably the most successful leftist in 50 years, right? In terms of, like, I don't know, in terms of material gains for a large number of people, there probably is no one who has done more to help more people than Lula, And so Mike was like, that was why he liked him. No other reason. I mean, that was it. It's like, he did it. He fucking did it. So what can I do to learn from that? And it was amazing to see all those people posting about some fucking Brooklyn, left media guy. You know what I mean? Like, that's incredible, really. That's, who else could say that? I mean, not me. If I were to go tomorrow, that would not, that would not be the case. Is the point? I mean, he was just better at that kind of thing. And it really is. It's something to learn from. It's something to learn from. It's a sense of humility that I think is lacking in a lot of young people. And I consider us young, Katie. We're still in the cohort, barely, but that sense of humility, that there's learning to be done from the people who have been there before. That we're not going to reinvent the wheel. That there is no, one of the things we always joke about on his show whenever I went on was that the cliche in politics that, we need new ideas for these new problems. It's like, no, the new ideas are bullshit. We need the old ideas. The old ideas were fine. It's just a matter of doing them, and there's people who've already thought everything you think you have to, like, think through, some complicated political question. I guarantee you there was, like, some Bolshevik fucking guy in 1906 who was already thinking about it, and probably in a much more effective way than you have. So that was one of the things that he was always committed to, is, like, understanding people's liberation movements around the world, people's liberation movements throughout history, and how they did it, and, like, very committed to actually doing it here.
Mm-hmm. And one of the last, I'm not revealing anything personal, and we can talk more about, like, I think a lot of people are kind of, like, kicking themselves in the way that they do when someone dies. It's like, I wish I had gotten that coffee with that person. And it's heightened again because of this world we're living in, COVID. Things, there is a powerlessness that we're feeling. And we can't just go out and meet that person. We can't just, like, hop on a plane like we would have before. And I think a lot of people are, with relative degrees of varying degrees of compassion, like, regretting things, like, not, Bhaskar said he texted him happy birthday, and, like, it didn't go through. He was, like, looking at the texts, and he saw it hadn't been sent or something. He saw, like, the red
Yeah.
Exclamation mark. And yeah, I think it's just a hard time, and we're that much more like online now, and so I don't know. But I this weekend I texted him the name of someone, Melba Pearson, who everyone should check out her campaign in Florida, and I was like, you should totally interview her. She's running against the devil, Catherine Rundle.
Kathy Fernandez Rundle. I know her well. She's from my home state of Florida.
Yeah, total terrible, evil person. Yes. And he was like, "Thanks, I'll check it out. Sounds great." So yeah, he was very, yeah. I don't know. And everyone's doing that, you know. Like we have to appreciate people more and not take people for granted, and that's also obviously true. But I'm just going to let you guys talk more because I'm getting too sad and also too me. This isn't interesting what I'm saying, so I'm going to just pass it to you guys because you knew him better. So on that note, anything else you want to say, Nando? I mean, we're going to keep talking about
let's bring Daniel in.
We'll bring on our Daniel Bessner, historian.
Yes.
Historian Daniel Bessner, Jacobin contributing editor, and a non-resident fellow at the Quincy Institute. Let it never be said that he's in residency.
Okay. Yeah, that's probably for payment.
Had Bernie won, Dan would have been fucking undersecretary for Eastern Hemisphere Affairs or some shit like that.
Secretary of State or Secretary of Defense, otherwise.
That's the only thing you were going to settle for.
Go big or go home, yeah.
But yeah, I just want to echo everything that Nando said. I mean, the reason that we even know each other is because of Michael. Yeah. Well, I was in LA, and he's like, "Yo, you should call Nando," and so I just want to emphasize that aspect of Michael being a community builder, and I think this is one of the things that he thought was so crucial to both building left politics, but also just being a person in the world. He was one of the most engaged people that I've ever met. He had his hands in a million different projects with a million different types of people. You know, from me, a professor, to you guys, who's in
the riffraff,
to the hoi polloi.
Yeah.
But he was really someone who built community and was really focused on community. And I think that was part of his whole being in the world. And I think that he was just such a good-hearted guy, and he's someone that really don't have much. At least I don't have much bad to say about him. He really got along with everyone in a really unique way, and I think that just emerged not because he was a social climber. Like oftentimes you hear someone say that and you think they have no depth, but Michael was very funny and very biting, you know, and he could be like mean funny, but he was ultimately a good-hearted person, and I think that's why he was able to do it in such a way, and that's why he was such a good satirist. That's why he could do right-wing Mandela or evil Bernie Sanders, right? I think that he was able to get at that edge. It's like Dana Carvey was able to get at that edge because he's like a fundamentally good guy, and I think Mike was able to see what was in people. A good satirist, particularly a good impressionist, is someone who has empathy.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
No one is talking about, and I don't know if he did it on air that much. Anti-Semitic Elizabeth Warren. I love he did it on air just for me.
Oh wow!
But it was a really good one. He was like, "Here's the thing, okay? You know, I want to endorse Bernie, but my papa said he's a dirty Jew, and I can't do that."
I don't know if he ever did it on air either, but whenever he would do like a foreign policy intellectual, he did it in like the Professor Frink from The Simpsons voice, like "Hi," and it was like, you know, he had that like Jewish sensibility in some sense, you know, like a northeastern guy. But yeah, and I mean, just what Nando was saying about his focus on the internationalists, I also think really unique. I think it's very easy for all of us to get enwrapped and enraptured with domestic politics and what's going on, obviously because it has the most direct effect on our lives. But Michael really had an internationalist humanism, and I think his socialism emerged more from his humanism than the other way around. I think that he was like fundamentally, he viewed people as equal, regardless of where they were born, the color of their skin, of course, that. But it's really important to emphasize, and I think that's why, I don't know if it's stated in the subtitle, you guys could let me know, but there is cosmopolitanism in the subtitle of Against the Web.
Yes, it is.
Right. So I think that's also a really important aspect. And I don't know the details of Michael's like background identity. My understanding is that he had some Jewish ancestry, but he like didn't necessarily. I mean, not sure
He grew up very poor
I mean,
with hippie parents. Is basically what he was. He was a poor.
Obviously,
hippie.
if you look at the genes, I mean, not to say whatever, there's Ashkenazi in there. And like, you can say what you will. I don't care how you're
I'm
raised.
surrounded by Jews on this broadcast.
I think someone told us we looked alike, but he had that, like, what I think is one of the best elements of like what the Jews really did give to the world, which is this cosmopolitanism, which is this acceptance,
rootless cosmopolitanism, right?
Some might say
vulgar cosmopolitanism.
Vulgar, ruthless, but I think that was a really important element of his thought, that he believed that people could be different, but that we could still live together and move toward a common project. And I think one thing to emphasize is that, like, I think he was getting a little bit fed up with sort of the internal sniping on the left, and he was getting a little tired. I mean, Nando, I'm sure you've had the similar conversations, but the last few months, he was really talking about it. The reason this is so sad is that one of the many reasons that he was talking about, like, changing courses a little bit and trying to have a direct effect on the world. And we were talking about projects that we were going to do, and I actually talked to him, like you, Nando, the night before, like 11:30 New York time, and he actually sent me a bit of writing that I think is really, really effective, and I hope that hopefully someday that'll see the light of day. But it was just a really beautiful message, and I just want to say it ended with something that was great, where he essentially said that we're all imperfect, that we all need to admit our mistakes, and that we have to stop, just expecting expiation without forgiveness. And the line that he ended with was regeneration, not destruction. And I just want to, like, emphasize that aspect of regeneration, not destruction, was just Michael in miniature. That idea of sort of building toward, and not just to destroy, but to create, which is why his death is just so horrible for multiple reasons. But that spirit is something that I often find lacking on the left, where people move for clout, people move for likes and retweets, and he just never gave a shit. He never gave a shit about Twitter, really. He was really he was a builder, and this is why this is so terrible in so many ways.
Yeah, I mean, what you talking about? Yeah, me and Daniel are friends now. We're friends. We hang out. And it was because of Mike. I'm friends with Waz. It's because of Mike. He's like a connector guy. I mean, that's like a I think it comes from like a bullshit kind of like management term. Like one of those like management studies guys who's like, there's like 4 types of people in this world. There's like, whatever, and like one of them is like a connector, and that's definitely what Mike was. He was like constantly thinking, who can I, like, I know this person and that person, and they don't know each other, but like, I know that they're gonna hit it off, and they have complementary skills and whatever, and it's gonna make the sum of them is gonna be greater than the whatever the expression is.
The sum is greater than the parts.
Greater than the sum of its parts.
Greater than the sum of its parts.
Yeah. See what we just did there? The 3 of us coming together to get the platitude correct.
There you go. This is a microcosm for that exact metaphor. Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's, again, like I said, he had big plans. I mean, he was very ambitious. Like, it was not, which is, I think, a good thing. He wanted to have an effect, like a major effect. He wasn't content just being like a kind of big in this world. Like he wanted to be big in the world. And because he knew that if that were to happen, it would be because he was able to help make a better world, and he was constantly thinking how he could do that. That's just, constantly thinking about that and actually doing it, like actually taking steps to do it. Like, his follow through on that kind of thing was impressive. Like, I mean, how many times have you had the conversation like, oh, we should do the thing, yeah, sounds great, and then like, no, it doesn't happen. He would like follow up and be like, hey, we should really do that thing and the thing, and like it's something that a lot of people have talked about in his death, is like, I'm just shocked at like how good he was at like maintaining a friendship. I mean, it's just, that's a skill. It really is. And it's hard these days. And, especially now when everyone's kind of in quarantine or whatever, but like he would check in, he would, make sure everything was good. And then he would, he like knew that you would be interested in that, but maybe you would be interested in this other thing. And I don't know. It was just,
he was the only person that I talked to on the phone, literally in my entire life. I remember
like, not your mother.
That's a whole nother. Katie, we'll get into that next time I'm on. But honestly, I remember one time he set up a call, and like 10 minutes in, I'm like, "Are we recording?" And he's like, "No, dude, we're just talking." And I'm like, "Oh, I had never, I just so few people our age actually did that." And he was just unique in that regard. Is that he would call like every, I would talk to him at least once a month on the phone for an hour and a half, 2 hours. I did not do that with anyone else in my life.
Yeah.
And that I would not have called him. Like, he is the one who like made the time and the effort to call, and then we just became such close friends over such a short. I met him in early 2018, and like he was in my regular text rotation. He was someone I spoke to regularly, and it was just he was really devoted, because he was devoted to that people to people connection. Like, he wasn't just a leftist interested in abstract theory. He was really interested in community building, and I think we need more of that. And that is, I think, one of the greatest legacies of this show. To me, it's the internationalism, which I spoke about, but it's also the focus on building a community of people that is empathetic and that is connected to one another, and that is at once devoted to a larger project, but also sees the humanity in everyone else. And I think ultimately that's what he didn't like about the intellectual dark web. That's what he wrote a book about it, because they tried to make everything into abstract reasons and rationalities, and he saw the dehumanizing effects of that.
Yeah.
And I just want to underline that he was really a humanist in the best sense of the word. And I think all of our politics, all of our socialisms, could be better informed by the fundamental humanism that Michael represented. And I think that's why he's had such an outpouring of grief from people who knew him well and people who knew him less well, because that was just a palpable thing. And that's why it's so devastating when Nando called me and let me. I didn't believe it. I mean, I'm like, what?
Yeah, it took like 10 minutes to. Yeah.
Yeah, it's he was such a vibrant person, and it's just so horrible that this happened.
Yeah, it is. So I knew him, I think, way longer than you guys did, but was not as close at all to him. I mean, we were friends, we were friendly, but yeah, I didn't. I'm sure that you guys had more texting and with him over the shorter period of time. But I remember he really did, like, he changed a lot. Like, he kind of reinvented himself. I was looking at photos. A friend of mine was sending me photos of all of us from years ago, and he was so much like nerdier. He looked so much nerdier.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He one of the reasons why we became friends is because he asked me for fashion advice after I went on TMBS for the first time. He was like, "Hey man, like, you're a snappy dresser. Like, like, I need to get some tips from you." Like, I was like, "Yeah, of course." Like, but I think that he did that with a lot of people. Like, about this thing, like, right. Daniel, like a lot about foreign policy because you're a fucking foreign policy professor at a fucking university. Like, I need to learn from you. Like, tell me things. But yeah, no, he definitely, he was very conscious about the way he put himself out in the world, which, I think that there's nothing wrong with that. Like, that it's actually an important thing to like take into account, like the way you present yourself in front of people. If you want to make a challenging argument or something that's going to challenge their core beliefs, if you don't mind how you're, like, that's the first thing they think about, is like the first impression is how you present yourself to them. If you're like this kind of dour, annoying person, then they're going to shut off immediately. But if you're kind of funny and you look cool and your thing looks great, like, then there's maybe a chance that you're at least getting your foot in the door. And then you can challenge, like, everything that they've been taught from when they were children by, like,
right, yeah,
propaganda and all that stuff.
It's kind of like why there are a lot of assholes in econ departments. I guess less and less, but the opposite side of that is not, because there are a lot of good Marxists in the econ departments, but like at some level, the people who study economics can be kind of like. I'll just drop that and say what I was going to say, which is that a lot of good people don't want to focus on cosmetic things, right? But it's also like, you can't, like you were saying, you're not going to reinvent the wheel. So either like play the game or do it another way. But yeah.
One thing I just want to say about Michael's clothing choices, I'm actually wearing the black Adidas in honor of him.
There you go.
But whenever he would wear the gold chain and sort of the Sopranos outfit, I'd always text him, Big Pussy Brooks is back again. and he had a sense of humor about himself, and I think that's
Yes.
one of the things that he like. You could make fun of him, like
Yeah. Absolutely.
You could like be really biting with him, and he would laugh, and he'd come.
Yeah.
I think that's important to emphasize, and just to build on what Nando was saying, I think that it was also like one of the reasons that he cared about clothes was, I mean, I'm sure he cared about clothes in the way that we all do, but also that I think it was really important to like win for him. I think, like he was sick and tired of the left losing, and I think one of the biggest things of his project, and that I hope will be built on, is this inchoate left that we're all a part of, is that like Nando was saying, like dressing is important, presenting oneself is important, and that we need to work within the structures that we have in order to actually win. And that to me is one of the most important things of TMBS, where he would like talk about left-wing political strategy with people from all over the world. And I think that's an important element of his legacy, is that we're ultimately in it to change the world, not to feel good about ourselves, not for clout and things like that. And I hope that this provides sort of a moment for people to reflect on that, and to reflect in sort of this short amount of time we have here, but also to reflect on Michael's legacy and the type of thing he was building. The left is best type of hashtag that he was really dedicating himself to.
Yeah. I think that it's like a kind of a discipline in the name of the thing that you believe in, right? Everything. Talking about clothes and saying like he wanted to win. It's true. It's like there can be a kind of self-indulgent haterism that I'm guilty of too in lots of different areas, but where it's like, look, do you want to win this or not? Like you can like problematize things and feel bad for yourself, or you can like go and I don't know, ask Nando Vila how to dress better. But no, it's true. It's interesting. Like a lot of people were talking about how he was both, he was like interested in obviously changing the world. There was some ego, but like I have ego. Like everyone has ego. Who does?
The sky's blue.
But like, yeah. I mean, obviously,
if you're putting yourself out there for
right.
thousands of people to comment on every single little aspect about like, well, actually, he's the neo-Strasserite because like blah 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 or whatever. It's like. Yeah, you have to have ego. Yeah.
But you also, I mean, what's interesting is I thought it was really interesting what you said about how you have to have empathy to be a good satirist, which is totally to be a good impersonator, which is really true. What I think is like really interesting is that you have to have somewhat of a thick skin, and I actually feel kind of similar. Like I relate to Michael in this. I think we both had like a kind of thick skin but thin skinned.
Oh yeah.
Where
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
You're very courageous. You put yourself out there and you get a lot of hate, but you keep it going,
well, yeah, but then I also get, as you've seen that other side too, like I get very upset. And, I assume that you and Michael had a similar thing where you would, I don't know, maybe, would you like talk him, would you be like, would he get upset and you'd be like your Zen encouraging self to him?
Yeah, I mean, he would definitely get upset, and he would definitely, it's the pressure of building an audience and maintaining it is a lot. I mean, let's be honest. That, Katie, like it's a lot. Like it's not like, I don't want to say it's like the same thing as going down into the mines or some shit,
No,
but like
it's exactly
the same thing. Yeah, it's exactly the same thing.
I coal mine or identify actually.
Yeah. But it's it's a pressure to like always be on, to always be interesting, to always be smart, to always have the right take, to shit's happening all the time, and you got to have the take, you got to be smart about it, you got to find your spin on it, you got to find the thing, and then you have to always be there, and you like if you're having a bad day, you just gotta, that's got to be out the window. Like if you had a tragedy in your life, you gotta right. And a lot of, that obviously got to him like it gets to everyone, but again, I think ultimately, I'll never forget, because I was with him the night of Super Tuesday when Bernie basically was murdered. He was already like, not 1 second was he like wallowing in defeatism, which I 100% was. I was like, let's check the fuck out and do acid in Costa Rica for the next 5 years. You know what I mean? He was like, nah, dude, like, let's go. Like it was like he was not 1 second, and in that sense, like he had an incredible resilience. in that I think he understood the stakes, but also the difficulty, and I think it came from understanding history and people's liberation movements all over the world. Like, yeah, you think we got it hard, in fucking left politics in the United States? Like, try being like a Congolese freedom fighter, come on, let's get the fuck up and go, like.
Yeah. I don't know if you guys agree, but I think what got him the most was the internal fighting that he just.
Yes, 100%.
I think
the nonsense, the bullshit, the stupidity,
like the stuff that he would like call and complain about. That was mostly that. He's like, why are we doing this to ourselves?
Yeah.
And I think he was getting burned out on that. I think that would be fair to say. I think that provides a lesson, that we just not in a sort of bullshit way. We need to be kinder to each other, but like if we want to win, we need to be kinder to each other. We want to be like a space that feels inviting, and I think that was one of the things that he wanted to do. Probably from growing up nerdy and interested in like Thomas Sankara, and the particular micropolitics of the ANC in the 80s. I think like he understood that this could be an arcane thing and that he wanted to popularize it, and that's why I think that's why the show was so effective, and one of the reasons that he was able to connect with so many people in a broad audience is he was really in that like liminal space between like nerdy dweeb who knows everything plus like guy who could make jokes about Obama. And I think that was a really useful skill, and that's sort of I mean, Katie, you're doing it, Nando, you're doing it as well, but like I think that's the space he was operating in, and that's one of the reasons. And what he did, I think that was unique was the internationalism, and I think like that that sort of like triple thread of like being empathetic, really caring about the world, but able to be like intellectual and funny is like what made TMBS unique, and it's like it's a void in sort of the left intellectual world right now. Michael was more of an intellectual, or at least of an intellectual cast of mind than he was anything else.
Yeah.
That was a really unique space, even if he was a professional broadcaster.
Yeah.
Sorry, say that again. You said he was more of an intellectual.
He had an intellectual cast of mind. I think that's what he brought. That's why he would have like people, frankly, like me who do like extremely arcane things. I was shocked that he wanted me on the show, but he had that like intellectual interest to like think it was important to bring arcane things.
Yeah, like if I was hosting my own show like that, I would never invite you on.
Never. In a million
no way.
I would invite me.
How did you guys meet? Like, so Nando, he wrote to you, Nando, about Spain stuff because he saw, was it
me and Mike? Yeah, he saw me on Dead Pundits, Adam Proctor's show. It was when
probably heard you on mine before, but yeah.
What?
He probably heard you on mine first.
He probably did, but I think he saw what Adam Proctor had me on to talk about the fucking Catalunya thing that when it was going down big, and it was like front page news all over the world, and all of a sudden I was kind of like the only Spain person in America, so yeah, he had me on. He wanted to have me on, and that was it, And he was very like, rereading the DMs it's just like heartbreaking because he was like, hey man, I have this show, like, like he was just like like a little kid, kind of really humble, and like, I hope you like it. I hope it's like, I hope it's fun. Like, if you want to check out some other episodes, like, I hope you like it. You know what I mean? Like, and I'm like, oh, like at the time I was probably like, yeah, okay, I'll check out your little show, But yeah, that's how we met. He just had me on TMBS to talk about Spain, and then I've been on a bunch of times since. But yeah.
Yeah, and when I basically had published a book, and our mutual friend Christy Thornton just put us in contact. Yeah, so if you know Christy, so she put us in contact, and I'm like, hey, I've got this thing, and he's like, yeah, let's talk about it. I sent him the book.
We froze him. We lost him. Oh well. Yeah, that's what you get.
Hey,
we lost you.
You're back.
This goddamn internet. What is wrong with this fucking city? So Nando,
what you get for being a traitor, a coast traitor.
No, it's not wrong. But so he had interviewed me, and I never thought that I would hear from him again. And then 2 weeks later, he's like, "You want to come on and talk about foreign affairs?" And then from then on, I was just making regular appearances. Whenever I was in New York, I hung out with him. We talked every day. We made like various events, and so it was just like he really made an effort. I mean, as you guys know, it's hard to make friends as you get older.
Yeah.
There's just less natural circumstances. And he's one of my only adult friends, Nando, you too. But yeah, he was just such a guy who really sort of built that out. And it was really a special relationship. And it was cool. Like, he was associated with the Majority Report. He had this cool show. It was also fun to be friends. Everyone liked Michael. And that was a really cool thing too. He really was at a node at the center of a network.
Yeah, and Sam said something on Majority Report yesterday that and Katie, you actually have the same thing, but like most funny people, like a lot of funny people, you can't make them laugh, like, because they're like competitive, in a way with humor, and like if you say something funny, then they're not laughing, they're trying to think like how they can one up it, but like Mike wasn't like that. Like, he like genuinely laughed all the time, and Kyle Kalinske tweeted out a video compilation of just him laughing at Dave Rubin, and just like how genuinely he like laughed about it, was great, and I remember like the time I made him laugh the most was we were on doing a post game of the show, and he was doing Chris Matthews and I was doing Chris Matthews, and we were doing Matthews to Matthews.
Nice.
But then I forgot why I started doing Bill Simmons, and he was doing Chris Matthews and I was doing Bill Simmons, and he had never heard me do a Bill Simmons or anything. Like, it just came out of nowhere. And he was just like cracking up, and I was like, man, this is cool. Like, he fucking likes my joke,
Yeah.
Like, he was very genuine in his love of like having his belief in that having a sense of humor is like is like one of the most important things, like more important than reading Capital, by Marx. It was like, just fucking don't take yourself too seriously and be able to laugh. Because again, this world can be arcane and unwelcoming, and that's just the exact opposite of what we need to be. We have to be the exact opposite. We have to laugh because that's how you get people in,
Yeah.
It's the only way.
It's a gateway drug.
It is a gateway drug,
I mean, the humor, the dressing okay, whatever. I mean, all that stuff, it's the same thing. It's like, It really is actually, the irony is that it is really politics. It's like doing politics and mass politics. If you actually care about reaching people who aren't already in the fold, then you have to actually do those things.
Yeah.
You want to meet people where they're at. But Daniel, you're welcome to say, but I feel that there's either is it a tech thing or maybe something you have to do, or I trying to read the room, but it's not a good Wi-Fi connection, so I can't tell.
Oh no, I'm just standing. But yeah, if it's streaming out, I'll probably go. Sorry about that, guys.
No, it's fine. Yeah. We're not trying to kick you out. Just is there any last final thoughts you have? I mean, you can come on again. This isn't,
No, of course, I'm not offended. I'm sorry that the internet's so bad. I just wanted to emphasize again that Michael's internationalism and his humanism is, I just hope something that we could build on. And I think he'll be remembered, and I think that's important and a testament to what he did on this earth in the short time he had. So
But also, just before you go, you said that he sent you something he had written, and you're hoping it sees the light of day. Like, what's the process for that? Are you in touch with his family? Like, do you know other people who had the work that he sent?
I don't know who he has sent it to, but I've talked with editors, and we're going to talk with the family, obviously, I think, before anything is published. But yeah, I think it'll see the light of day. I think he would have wanted it to see the light of day. So hopefully, we'll be able to do that. But yeah, I think it'll come out soon.
I mean, not the silver lining. That's not the right term at all. But it's like, the nice thing, I guess, is that people can do. There's so much that can still be done, like that we know he wanted to have done, that we know he would have liked to have seen done. I mean, he's left it's so weird to talk about him in the past tense, but he has left this incredible archive. Like, people can listen to him, watch him, transcribe stuff. I mean, there's so much there, and it is really painful and sad and tragic and frustrating when something is cut short, decades early. But it's also it's not a but. It is sad and it's tragic. There's also Yeah, maybe there's no forget that. I was just gonna say.
Well, I think it's like he is the first one of our generation to go, and I think it's making all of us who like have started this project within the last 5-10 years take a look back, and that's not a silver lining, but it could be a moment of clarity, and I think he would have wanted it to be. I think, a space where we think about things and look back at what we've done.
I mean, I guess that the silver lining or the reminder thing is that like it is amazing he did as much as he did. That's what it is. Like our saying, like he had only just begun, and our saying, like in the prime of life, and there was so it's true, and also like he achieved so much, and I mean, I think when you're in it, obviously you're like down, and we're living in a hard world, but it's like on some level, it's like, I think maybe if he could stepping back, it's like just remarkable that he did do what he did.
The amount of people who've been tweeting at me, like saying things like, I was a huge Sam Harris fan until I found Michael's show on YouTube, or I was on the path to becoming alt-right until I found, you know what I mean? Like he was very committed to competing for those people. Like his competitive side and his ego was like, no, we cannot let these assholes own this shit. Like we need to compete for these people. Like, and it's like, again, and it came from, he never like made fun of their fans or anything like that. He made fun of them relentlessly, but he never made, like he understood that people gravitate towards certain things for a million reasons. It doesn't make them bad people. Like we're all in a very confusing world. There is no political education. There is, we're all kind of bombarded with propaganda since we were little kids. Like it's normal for someone to like watch a Ben Shapiro video on YouTube and be like, wow, that guy's making a lot of sense. Like he wanted to compete on that front head on, and the amount of people that he probably won over, or at least diverted away from that, is a huge testament to his work and talent and things like that. And it was self-conscious. Like he wanted to do that. Like he wasn't just kind of like doing his show because like that's what he was. And he was like thinking like, if I'm a 17-year-old kid whose life is kind of shitty, how can I provide comfort, analysis, empowerment to that person so that they don't go down the wrong path?
Right.
And he was able to do it for a lot of people.
I don't know if he ever said this to you, but one time he's like, let Ben Shapiro come at me. Like I'm funnier and I'm smarter, and I think that we should all have that sort of attitude. Like we could beat these people.
Right.
It's wild that they're as successful as they are, and that we can. And I think that Michael also had that message of hopefulness that we can win because we should win, and I think that's important too.
And I was hearing Waz on Sam's show saying that he made him realize like that what did he say, like I used to think of like people in the white and people in the Midwest, I thought of them as like, I don't remember what the word was, like corn or something. I can't, but that like basically the divide and conquer thing. It's like the class there's class solidarity. There's no divisions. There's no like identity politics rifts among the ruling class. But there is among everyone else. And then we have to like see past that stuff. And I think that's really brave. And like, I know that you can get called toxic, and you can get called like Red Brown Alliance advocating for talking about class, or for encouraging people to have empathy for people who are,
like the sad thing is like,
or whatever. And that's just fucking first of all, good luck not doing it that way. Like not having those people part of the fucking coalition. But besides that, and I feel like I can't even say, I have to say it that way. But you know what? I care about those people. I do. I care about all people who are played and like have their own interests, are being duped. And I do.
Yeah. I mean, the last thing we texted about, me and him, was, some person on Twitter who was going after him for being like a Red Brown Alliance, some bullshit like that, and like, I just look at that and I'm like, what universe are you living in, man? Like what, how can you say, like, how can you believe that something like that? Like, that's just so obviously insane. And like because Mike knew that like, you needed to compete for those people.
Right, yeah.
You did. What are we gonna do? Just like only talk to the good people?
I know. Yeah. No, it's yeah. I mean, we'll
lose every single fucking time.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, it's related to like the clothing and the humor. It really is. It's another thing. I mean, it's different because this actually has, I think, there is an empathy and a humanism and an empathy and a sense of justice that also relates to it. But putting that aside, which I think really did guide Michael a lot. And, Che Guevara's quote about, revolutionaries being driven by love. I mean, all that stuff is true. But like that aside, again, it's like, yeah, if you want to win, like you're going to have to do something besides urging people not urging people, chiding people for not checking their privilege.
Yeah. Well, actually, that's a good way to lose. If you want to lose, just do that.
Yeah. So anyway, sorry, Daniel, what did you say? But I cut you off, or we were.
No, Michael particularly didn't like that sort of language. He didn't like languages of exclusivity, and right. I think like another thing that emphasizes his inclusivity. Yeah. Why he brought so many people together and why he was so powerful. Again, I think you're right. Linked to his humanism and his empathy.
Yeah, the one of the last times we were together in the same place was in January or February. We did a Harvard for Bernie event, and I was on one panel, and then he was on the second panel, and I said something about cancel culture. I don't remember what. Oh my god, I can't believe I'm gonna get. Anyway, this is a different time, but I said something about not cancel culture, about canceling. Something related to to solving racism by telling coal miners to check their privilege. But he said during his panel that he was on with Cornel West and Phil Agnew and Isha Krishnaswamy. He said, I remember he's like, like Katie said with canceling people. And it was like this moment I remember. I was like, oh yeah, we should talk about this. Like, and then, that was the last time I saw him in person, which was not that long ago. It was pre-fucking Corona lockdown. But, yeah. So January 28th. Thanks. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah. No, it's, yeah. It sucks, man.
Yeah, it sucks. But, I mean, imagine him 10 years ago looking like if you had told him he would have achieved.
Just having like Cornel West and Lula tweet about him.
Yeah, I know. And then,
like,
of course.
He would have loved it. It's like, it's hard to overemphasize how much he would have loved the Lula tweet in particular.
Yeah.
Like, he loved it. It was like his man, like beyond. And I think it's such a testament to who he was that he achieved that. He got, Lula knows who he was, in a real way. And I think that's a testament to the man.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Daniel. And come back on. We'll talk about your stuff and your books. Thanks, Are you writing another book?
He's always writing a book.
Yeah.
What's your next one?
Always writing a book. Just write.
Always be writing.
It's going to probably always be ABW. It's probably going to be on the major foreign policy thinkers, people like Chomsky, Fukuyama, analyzing all of their work and putting them in dialogue with each other.
You mean? Because I can get you Matt Carper.
Yeah, Brian, Matt. I know Matt well.
No, me too.
Yeah, the Carp.
Yeah.
Well, aren't you writing something about the Rand Corporation? I can't keep track of how many fucking books you're writing.
Yeah, so that one's hit a speed bump. We'll talk about that in person.
Okay.
All right. Thanks, Daniel. Come back.
Well,
soon.
Thanks so much for having me on, Kate.
Yeah, of course.
See you soon. Bye.
Later.
Bye. Yeah, it's Michael and I. It's funny. It's like, wait, he mentioned something about Katie a few weeks ago. I forget what though. It's the one thing I'm going to select. And anyone who does a super chat, I'll donate that to the. I don't want to monetize this, so I will donate it to the thing that they're putting together for Michael.
Yeah, his sister's putting together a foundation.
Yeah, had you met his sister?
Yeah.
Oh, really? Yeah,
she's cool. LA, right? Yeah, she's in LA. She lives in Silver Lake. Right. She's an actress and like kind of actress writer.
Oh, okay.
Here in LA. Yeah, she's cool. She's great.
he and his mom, and I met the mom at the event very briefly, and she said something. I don't remember what she said. She said something to me. It was very sweet. I can't remember what it was, and I remember like saying how much she looked like him. And then I saw the sister. I saw the quality wasn't that good, like the Wi-Fi or whatever, when she was on the Majority Report, so I didn't see it as much. But then I saw on Instagram, like I saw clearer photos, and she looks a lot like Michael too.
Yeah, she does.
That was really moving watching her talk to Sam on Majority Report, because you just got a sense of what a good brother he was.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, it's like I know. I mean, even just like the fact that like we weren't closer, it just like it kind of speaks to one of the things I think he was frustrated with, like, which is like. No, that's I don't know, the hustle, and like even on the left, like we should be like he and I should have been like talking more, collaborating more.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, and there's like defending turf, and then like his guys, like whatever, there are rivalries that like divide, and there's like so many people mad at other people, and there are all these camps, and like I don't know where the line is. There's some line, right, where like there's some people we hate. Like there are people who we hate and we should hate, who are closer to us in like, we probably have been at the same dinner parties or holiday parties, but they're not redeemables.
Yeah.
And there are like people.
Anyone who supported Warren.
Basically. I mean, yeah. But yeah. I mean, definitely anyone who supported Clinton, like forget it.
Well, yeah.
Unless they're repentant.
Yeah, like Peter Dow.
Yes. But like, I mean, it is an interesting question, though, because, like, what is that line? Like, we do have to be less divisive and less cannibalistic.
Yeah, I mean, listen, like, we exist in capitalism. We all got to make a living. There's some competitive, like, it makes us competitive. Like, there's a limited amount of Patreon money to go around or whatever, like, or at least there's that feeling, it's ambient but that's capitalism, neoliberalism, whatever you want to fucking call it. But that's what it is, like it's a system based on. Right. If we all had secure housing and healthcare and education and shit, like we could all do podcasts and not have to worry about that shit,
Yeah. It's not just that. It's also like, it's that. And it's also, I mean, it's not like I don't want people to think I was like, we had some beef or anything. It's just like, now that he's not here, I'm like, oh, we all should be like cross pollinating more. That's you know what I mean? Just like yeah. And then there's I don't know. And so many people hate each other, and like I mean, there's just so many beefs. Like I tried it. Like, look, I'm gonna like if I feel like someone really attacks me, I'll hold the grudge, but not that long. But I don't like seek. I don't know. It's hard, and people just egos and feel attacked, and then like they feel betrayed, and I don't know. It's just like we don't really have time for this. We should have some self-help groups on the left.
Yeah, I mean, 100%. I mean, again, there's two types. I mean, some of it is just like personal petty bullshit. Some of it is like meaningful political differences. It's hard to like parse the two sometimes. Sometimes there are legitimate political differences, and it'd be better if we can keep it on that level. But often the personal shit gets in the way and makes it harder, and everyone kind of knows each other, and it's it's kind of like high school in that way, and that's not a good way to be,
right. There's so many feuds I mean, I know so many different people who are like constant, like they're talking.
Well, it's like it's kind of like when you're like like say like you're going out and you're like inviting, and you have to like ask the other person like, but are you guys beefing, like you have to like double check because you might not have remembered or I mean, it sucks. It sucks, and we should try to figure out how to not do that. I mean, I try not to get involved. I don't often get involved, but it's sometimes there are many. Like I guess I'll say like sometimes there's meaningful political differences, but sometimes they're just petty bullshit.
And sometimes there's differences that can be like, okay, we'll overlook. Like, okay, you and I disagree on that, and we can still be friends. Yeah. In fact, I'm going to bring on our next when we bring our next guest on. This is someone who's known Michael for a while. She's joking with me. I'll share this in a second. But Okay, I won't say that. I'm texting this person. I'm not going to say that. She's watching us now.
Okay.
Share anything. Just text me when you want to come on. The person that I want to have, who we're going to be bringing on next, is someone who knew. I think that she and I may have met Michael at the same time. We'll find out. But let me just see this. Okay, most of my girlfriend's family is ultra conservative Trump lovers, and we clashed. And I found myself angry at them, but it's not them as much as systems that deserve that energy. Yeah, I mean, didn't Michael say, what was it? It's a Nina Turner kind of turn of phrase.
Yeah, it's like be harsh on the systems, easy on the people. It's kind of
And hers was like hard on the issues, easy on people.
Yeah, and you're seeing like the liberal kind of response to Black Lives Matter is like, you need to call your racist uncle and you need to tell him that he's a fucking racist, you know. And it's like,
oh my God, we totally do white fragility with people on the show.
Yeah, and it's that's just not the way to do it. And again, it's not about like excusing racism or giving it a pass or anything like that. But like, you need to get buy-in from people. You know, you need to get buy-in from people.
Yeah,
you just don't do that by doing that kind of thing. But that's how liberals understand politics. I mean, it's just the only way they understand it, as some sort of personal kind of cleansing that you have to do, and it's. So
I'm already seeing people's comments in there. It's like, I'm afraid I can't there a lot of people hate each other. Or think they hate each other. I think I think there could be fewer videos, intra-left videos, like making fun of people.
Yeah. I guess I don't do that shit.
I know. We should do that though. It'll get
we
us
should
good.
Do that, like.
Yeah, guys? What will give us good clicks? Let's be total mercenaries. What do you like? That, by the way, I couldn't find my regular headphones. Luckily, my mom bought like a 10-pack of every type of audio gear, so that's why I have this hot pink thing in my ear.
Yeah.
But Nando, I mean, this sounds corny, but like you sound so corny and weird. But you can like think about Michael when you're doing the your Chris Matthews.
Yeah. Like now I can't not think about him if I do Chris Matthews.
Yeah. You should. Could you do Michael doing Chris Matthews?
Well, the bit that we were doing when we were doing Matthews on Matthews was like how he's obsessed with everything is Tip O'Neill. You know, all of politics can be explained by Tip O'Neill. So we were like, we would take like some obscure leftist thing and be like, you know, when you got to do the thing with the red band lines, what you got to do is you got to get Tip O'Neill in there. You know, you get him in there, you can work out both sides, and then boom, you got the, you know, like, and it's like that's what we were doing. It was really funny. I mean, it was, you know, it was a good bit. I mean,
your Brywise is really good.
My Brian Williams. I did that for the first time ever here. Off the cuff. I've never done him before.
Really good.
He's a random guy to do an impression of, you know?
I know, but he's so fucking corny.
He's the worst. I mean, he's just
cynical. Nando, he is the worst.
A respected podcaster, Michael Brooks. You know, I don't agree with him all the time, but his Chris Matthews is a hoot here in the NBC building.
You're so good at adding that thing. Like when we did a thing on Joy-Ann Reid, you actually said something. What was it? Irreality. You said something about the irreality of how someone like her is being rewarded a show. And you're like, the irreality of it. And I was like, the irreality. You're like, the irreality of that is something she'll be bringing you every day. So like the way you do
Joy-Ann Reid is going to bring the irreality to her nightly broadcast. She's going to bring that urban sensibility we really want here at NBC.
We've been striving for, and we haven't quite hit the mark.
We have heard your protests loud and clear. America has spoken. Black Lives Matter, join.
And to prove it,
we have Joy-Ann Reid hosting a nightly show at 7 p.m. We couldn't be prouder. We couldn't think of a better way to honor George Floyd's legacy.
Oh my God. That's exactly what he basically. I mean,
he thinks that. He 100% thinks that. Like
he does. Can't you imagine them at dinner party? Like, look, they're tea leaves. We were reading the tea leaves. We were reading the symbols loud and clear. It's long overdue.
It's like, and there's like this thing that like centrist people do where like they kind of like adopt like a maximalist radical position on something that doesn't like something symbolic, kind of like, statues, and then like not do anything. So be like, I stood there as they brought down the statues of Christopher Columbus. I dodged bullets at the hands of the NYPD. And we have heard you loud and clear, America. Here is joy.
And the head of Christopher Columbus, which I removed from 59th Street.
Yeah. Christopher Columbus was actually an imperialist pig. Here's Joy.
Oh my God, it's really, really good. We got to do that.
Yeah.
That statue was violent.
Christopher Columbus on Columbus Square or Columbus Circle was literal violence. We're going to rename Columbus Circle to Joy Ann Reid Circle.
Hexagon, because
I go to that Starbucks every morning and get my double espresso. And the thought of being on Columbus Circle just makes me think of all the victims of U.S. imperialism.
And that espresso, that gets my espresso stuck in my throat.
Yeah. I spit out my espresso every morning on Columbus Circle as a sign of protest to say Black lives do matter. Joy Ann Reid deserves her show.
We're gonna get so canceled, but it's too perfect. It really is so good because we're not making fun of Joy Ann Reid. We're making fun of Brian Williams.
Yeah, we're making fun of both.
Fans. I mean, no, we're huge fans of Joy Ann Reid.